Welcome back to the Ghost in the Machine, and today we're getting into the Get 'em preseason rankings. The NFL kicks off September 5th, and there's still time to maximize your money before the opening kickoff. The coach has been running the sims and comparing lines non-stop to provide you with a complete breakdown and projections of each of our top 5 guys by position for the season. For our top 5 running backs, we got the following guys. At number 5, we've got Devin A-Chain. At number 4, Jonathan Taylor. At number 3, we've got Breece Hall. At number 2 is Bijan Robinson. And number 1 is, of course, Christian McCaffrey.
The top 5 at running back has changed a lot, as have the ranks as a whole, as running back rankings are very fickle this year. For example, Jonathan Taylor is currently our RB4 here at Get 'em, and he is currently projected for 256.6 PPR points. Devin A-Chain was our RB13 before our last rankings update, and he was only projected for 38.8 less points than Taylor was at the RB4. He is now our RB5, only 15 points behind Taylor. The running back position as a whole is split into distinct tiers, with tier 1 being CMC, Bijan, and Breece Hall, with a substantial drop-off happening after that into a second tier which contains 10 to 12 backs.
So coach, of these top 3, how much further ahead of the pack is Christian McCaffrey?
To answer your question quickly, a lot. He's currently projected for 50 more points than the RB2 and about 100 more points than the RB4. This is factoring in the fact that everybody else in San Francisco is also going to eat, with Debo and Ayuk both being top 15 receivers in our projections. We here at Get 'em are just really high on the 49ers offense, as is most of the industry at this point.
So coach, is there absolutely any reason why CMC shouldn't be first off of every single draft board this year?
Absolutely not, and it is largely about positional scarcity. In all of fantasy football, the only player projecting anywhere close to McCaffrey is CeeDee Lamb, but there are roughly 20 wide receivers that you would be totally happy to have on your team, and the well is way more likely to run dry at running back in your draft. Knocking out your RB1 position, locking up Christian McCaffrey, and not having to think about it again for the entire year is one of the quickest and easiest decisions that I can remember in fantasy football over the last 5 years. One big mover this week is Saquon Barkley, who has dropped to RB9 with Jalen Hurts getting more of the offensive touchdowns in our projections. Saquon is certainly going to be utilized, but with AJ Brown getting his and the tush push reportedly very much alive in Philly, there may not be enough rushing touchdowns to go around for a true overall running back 1 season out of Saquon.
So the gap between our running back 15 and running back 30 is a difference of only 25 projected points, basically a single game. Of these guys, you've told me it's basically dealer's choice of just picking your favorite who's going to stay healthy. So of that gambling game, who do you want to pick to stay near the top?
One guy that sticks out to me in this range is DeAndre Swift, and he's actually near the bottom of this range at RB27 right now. Caleb Williams has looked magnificent in the preseason, and there's no reason for us to believe right now that Chicago is not going to move the ball aggressively this year. Part of that will be DeAndre Swift, who has always been known as a pass-catching running back and will be a great safety valve while Caleb Williams figures it out his rookie year. Obviously, there's a ton of competition in Chicago, with Rome Odunze emerging so far in camp, with Keenan Allen always being a top 10 receiver consistently for the last several years, and DJ Moore, who I think has been one of the most underrated players in football for the last 5 years, all conglomerating there. And that's not even mentioning Cole Kmet, who was one of their top targets last year anyway. So there is a lot of mouths to feed. But Swift is one of the ones where you can see very clearly where he gets his usage as that safety valve. And in addition to any work that he is going to get through the air, there is also a pretty reasonable expectation that he handles at least a fair share of the rushing work. He may not get all the inside the 5 touches, but this is a guy that is, again, running back 27, and that's roughly where his ADP is as well. And so somebody that really could outperform their ADP and that is poking out to me in this range is DeAndre Swift. As you said before, though, RB15 to RB30 is basically dealer's choice. And so I'm not going to fault anybody for whoever their favorite is in this range, unless it's Tony Pollard.
And see, that makes me so mad because my favorite of that range is, of course, toilet paper Tony Pollard. I just loved everything he did on Dallas. I realize that it's completely unfounded.
I looked up and I was like, who's catching a stray? And I was like, it's going to be... Yeah,
of course it's Tony, but god damn it, I love him. Dallas should have never got rid of him. They should have got rid of Zeke instead. But we're going to talk about that. Probably never.
Well, they should have gotten rid of Zeke, but at the same time, like, Pollard, they did for last year. Like, Zeke was in New England, and Pollard, like, just never got he lost that step of explosiveness that we like fell in love with when he was carrying the ball 20 times a game. Like, I think he needs to be a specialist.
Yeah.
And like maybe he plays that role, but like in Tennessee, because like maybe they like one ACL Tyjae Spears. But he was so much less explosive last year than he was the year before. Like, all of his advanced metrics just sucked compared to when he was like complimenting Zeke. Maybe it was just because the defense got so used to Zeke being so f***ing fat and slow and bad that when Pollard would come out there, they'd all like fall on their heels because they were not used to anybody moving that quickly.
Well, that's exactly what it was too, because all of Pollard's work that was successful came outside of the tackles. It was always an outside zone or a f***ing sweep. Yep. And so, you know, when you don't have a big fat boy running down the middle, the box is not as pressed up, and you have guys on the outside. You have your ends much more spread out. That's exactly what the f*** they did last year.
They also brought their ADOT down so much. They stopped like throwing the ball down. Like, all of CeeDee Lamb's touchdowns were like yak plays.
Yeah.
Like, they just played toward the middle of the field so much more that the defense just no longer. I don't know. How many times did you watch a Cowboys game and be like, damn, they're running too high on 60% of plays? Because it felt like I would watch that all the time last year and just never with the Cowboys.
I don't know. I think the thing about the Cowboys is they're always, it's like a perception thing, right? And so like there's like this I don't want to say aura, because that's the least fucking scientific description of a football team in the world. But like there's like almost this expectation when you play the Cowboys that they're looking for the highlight plays, right? And so like I think something for me that I've noticed is the Cowboys don't play football, they play highlight football. And when they're unable to do that, they're not fucking doing anything. But either way, we're not talking about the goddamn Cowboys. Join us next time for our next rankings breakdown so you can be completely prepared for your fantasy, best ball, or DFS draft as the season comes closer to kicking off. We'll be updating these rankings daily, so come join our Discord where you'll never miss a bet. Until next time, the bets are out there. Go get them.
All content on our channel is for discussion, entertainment, and illustrative purposes only and should not be considered professional financial advice, solicitation, or recommendation. Past performance does not guarantee future results.